Let's go to this story now. The funeral service for veteran journalist Joe Latakgomo is underway at the Atteridgeville Community Hall in Pretoria. Latakgomo died at the Kalafong Hospital on Sunday. Latakgomo was the founding editor of the Sowetan newspaper and also served at the Press Council of South Africa's Public Advocate. All right, let's go now to SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa, who is live to us from Atteridgeville. Mbalenhle, good morning to you, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. You know, in a conversation that you and I had a little bit earlier on, we certainly cannot downplay the role that people like Joe Latakgomo played for journalism, even during very difficult times, in South Africa's history. And I thought about this, that his passing comes at a time when, in fact, I saw a tweet from one of South Africa's editors talking about Media 24 launching a staff consultation on plans to close the city press, which means that his passing comes at a very difficult time for the media industry, for print media in South Africa, but I guess across the board. Talk to us a bit about the sentiments that are being shared at the funeral service of this giant.
Well, certainly, at the moment, we're hearing words of encouragement, but most of all, we're also hearing about the man that was Mbalenhle Mthethwa. And we heard from the wife who said when she got married, she didn't know that she was getting married to a living and walking encyclopedia. And I'm actually joined by someone, and it is important that we talk about the state that the media finds itself in, particularly the print industry. The print industry has been facing difficult times, and they don't only start today with consultation to close one of the popular Sunday newspapers, but also there are many other newspapers that have been removed from circulation, magazines, you name it. The print industry has really faced difficult times with very little revenue sources and little advertising, and with the move to digitization and digital platforms such as online newspapers and so on. So it has been a very difficult time, but we also have to remember the role that, as you have rightfully said, the role that Mbalenhle Mthethwa played in paving the way for journalists like you and me, as we had discussed a little bit earlier on. And they were actually reporting at a very difficult time when it was difficult to even go into the townships to write a story, when it was even difficult, when it was difficult to even get a story published that went against what the government of the day was saying, where they possibly faced persecution and even prison time for having told a story that the government of the day did not perhaps want to be known by the rest of the world. But I'm joined by another veteran journalist, Dr. Philip Mtimkulu. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Ntate, we really admire your work and the work that you made in terms of ensuring that there is freedom of the press in today's society. You worked at a time when there was no freedom of the press. Talk to us about the difficulties that you faced.
It was very, very difficult in those days. We could not just freely publish what we wanted. Our stories were censored, and then sometimes we were arrested all the time. The police were after us, and it was just a very, very difficult occupation that we had.
Ntate, how will you remember Mbalenhle Mthethwa, and why do you think he went as far as to start something like the Sowetan?
Joe was a man who was very dedicated, dynamic person, a man who got ideas, and he was not a person who would just sit down. He had many ideas. That's why actually he was a success when he joined the world in 1968, and throughout we really look up upon him as a role model, and he did well for us as young journalists. And when the world got banned, he didn't sit down, but he tried something. That's why he actually ended up being the editor of the Sowetan.
And what story would you say stood out in his career that he wrote and that you would say was a turning point in his life?
I think one of the best stories that he wrote, it was about the formation of Kaizer Chiefs when it split from Orlando Pirates.
Oh, was it? That's such a beautiful thing, especially considering that there's a derby happening later on today, and unfortunately we're laying him to rest. Thank you so much for your time. I'm told that we have to wrap, but Criselda, the official ceremony is about to start wrapping up. It's actually starting, and that's why I have to let go of Ntate Mthethwa here, who has to go inside to bid farewell to his friend and colleague. And as you have heard him confirming that those dark times during apartheid made journalism and press freedom, or freedom of the press, was rather difficult. It was rather difficult to tell stories without those privileges that we now have today. It's back to you in studio.
Mbalenhle Mthethwa, thank you very much indeed at the funeral service for late veteran journalist Joe Latakgomo. I'm sure there's going to be great tributes on the life and his times as a journalist and his contribution to this particular field.